Um, Good morning again, and welcome to our Sunday service. My name is Marilyn Maney, and I'll be leading the service today. And as we begin, I'd like to thank the team that made this morning possible. Ron Levy, our music director, Benny Crespo and Jack Lohr, who have been furiously trying to get our music and tech together, and participants Lois Parker-Henyon, Andrew Craig, and our speaker, Derick Lugo. For those of you who don't know, the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood has for over 100 years been a place of embracing welcome. Whatever your age, gender expression, sexual orientation, education, economic status, history, or theology, we welcome the fullness of who you are. Ours is a non-creedal faith that shares a deep belief in our interdependence and in the power of love, but does not impose any particular dogma with regards to the divine or the meaning of human living. Each of us in our congregation and in our broader Unitarian Universalist faith relates differently to the transcendent, to the mystery. Each of us shares, however, in our curiosity, our depth of reflection, and our attention to living our lives thoughtfully, meaningfully, and in a way that furthers justice and liberation and freedom for all people. If you're interested in learning more about Unitarian Universalism or about the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood, please visit our website at uuridgewood.org and email us at 113cottage@gmail.com. We can also then get you on our email list. Email is our primary way of communicating these days, so please check and make sure you are receiving daily and weekly emails from USR. There's information about everything that's going on. I'm not sure about the next part of this, but usually we begin our service, we have a tradition of lighting a chalice and reciting simple words to connect with each other. Jack, do you have that? We light this chalice for the light of truth, the warmth of love, and the energy of action as we gather together in the circle of community. Thank you. Since this is a service about the outdoors and the land we live in and recreate on, I'd like to start by remembering the native people who roam this area, the wolf and turkey clans of the Lenni Lenape, and also to think of our neighbors in Ringwood, New Jersey, the turtle clan of the Ramapo Lenape tribe, who are our guests last fall and who continue to suffer mightily from the health and social effects of environmental inequality. The service today is about the great outdoors, its wonders, beauty, and its balm for the soul. It's been well documented that time spent in the outdoors offers physical, spiritual, and health benefits. Just being among a stand of trees not only can lighten your mood, it can actually slow your heartbeat and provide a sense of well-being to a weary soul. I'm a hiker myself and have experienced the euphoria of summiting a peak, the awesome wonder of an incredible vista, as well as the peace and quiet solitude that a stroll in the woods can bring. The joys of nature belong to everyone, and regardless of race, sexual orientation, ability, location, or age, everyone should be able to reap its rewards. You would think that our parks and trails and national lands would be equally welcoming to all takers. Yet, is this really true? When I hike, I seldom see people of color on the trail or at the lodges I visit that are run by the mountain clubs that I belong to. I go to a summer hiking camp every year and again, have rarely encountered people who don't look like me. After the murder of George Floyd and the surge of empathy and activism unleashed by the Black Lives Matter movement, the outdoors organizations I belong to started to take active steps to examine and redefine their missions and to partner with groups who have been promoting the enjoyment of the outdoors for all. Organizations like Outdoor Afro, Latino Outdoors, and Pride Outside. But what are some of the roots of this disparity? Some go back a very long way. Every national park was once Native American land. Native Americans were forcibly removed from their ancestral homes, and later treaty rights to traditional use such as hunting and fishing were erased, often without acknowledgement and surely without compensation. More recently, prior to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, African Americans were banned and segregated at national parks, state parks, swimming pools, and beaches. Until the 1960s, even in the vaunted Sierra Club, the nation's premier conservation and outdoor exploration organization, membership was granted only through sponsorship from existing members, reinforcing likeness and discouraging inclusion. Beyond this legacy, several factors may contribute to a lack of diversity in the outdoor world, which includes not only participants, but organizations and the recreation industry itself. For instance, lack of early childhood experiences. If no one in your family has contact with nature, there are fewer connections with nature to nurture. If you don't know that the joys of nature exist, how can its benefits be explored? Access and location. Few transportation options exist from city streets to rocky paths, and visits to national parks or camping can be expensive. Some national park rangers carry weapons, which can be intimidating and scary to visitors. Even ranger uniforms can be a deterrence to some groups. And most rangers are white and male. The historical trauma of slavery and lynchings in the Jim Crow era are associated with the environment for many African Americans. The woods were a place where tragic historical atrocities occurred and where family lore of fear may be passed from one generation to the next. The pandemic has ruthlessly exposed the disparities between income, class, race, and health in our society. To cope, people have dusted off their bikes, taken out their trail maps, and rediscovered walking in their neighborhoods. I believe our collective mental health depends on robustly welcoming all to share equally, equitably, and joyously in the benefits of nature. And now, please make yourself comfortable as Lois Parker Henyon leads us in a mountain meditation.
Mountain meditation. Sit in a comfortable position and close your eyes. Relax. Bring awareness to your breath. Feel each breath as it comes in and goes out. Just let each breath come as it is without trying to change it in any way. Open your mind to the experience as it is with no desire to change it. Just experience the breath. Breathe in and then breathe out. Observe your breath. Let your body be still and straight. Sit with a sense of dignity, a sense of resolve, a sense of being complete and whole in this very moment. Let your posture reflect this intent in its form. Keep breathing in and out. As you sit here, let an image form in your mind's eye, an image of the most magnificent or beautiful mountain you have ever known, seen, or imagined. Watch it with great focus, whether from afar or up close. It can be a single mountain or a mountain in a range of other mountains. This mountain has been here for a long time. Perhaps your mountain is snow-covered, or it is rugged, or it is covered with thick pine trees. It may have streams and lakes or flat meadows. Whatever your mountain is, imagine it with your mind's eye. Observe it. Watch its lofty peaks, the soft and hard contours, and the broad base firmly rooted in the bedrock of the earth. Notice how massive it is, how solid, how unmoving, how beautiful. Now, try to bring the mountain into your own body sitting here, so that your body and the mountain in your mind's eye become one. Feel the massiveness, the majesty, and the stillness of the mountain. Your head becomes the peak, your shoulders and arms the sides of the mountain, your bottom and thighs the solid base rooted to your seat. Experience a sense of uplifting all the way to the crown of your head, the peak of the mountain rising to the sky. With each breath, you become more like a breathing mountain, alive yet unwavering in your inner stillness. As you sit here, become aware of the fact that moment by moment, the world changes around us. Feel the core of the mountain that remains unchanged, even as the seasons begin to change. The mountain is solid. As autumn arrives, bringing brilliant colored leaves and warm golden light. Soon, there is a slight chill to the air, and the dormancy of winter takes hold. Snow and wind come to the mountain, swirling around it. But the mountain remains still, quiet and steady throughout all the storms. It is unwavering, steady, rooted. Gradually, the warmth of the sun returns, the snow melts, and the streams come cascading down the sides of the mountain. Plants emerge from the soil, and buds on leaves begin to unfurl. Eventually, spring gives way to summer, and the mountain is bathed in heat. Insects buzz, and plants reach a peak of lushness. Night falls each evening, and the mountain bears witness to the galaxies and the endless space expanding the universe above. Dawn arrives each day as the sun emerges. Regardless of the weather or the time or the seasons, there is a constant state of change, but the mountain remains still and grounded. Like the mountain, your life will present an ever-changing universe, and you know that regardless of the various degrees of light between dawn and darkness, that everything passes. You can experience the joys and challenges of life with compassionate clarity, but like the mountain, you can remain unwavering, calm, solid, and still. See yourself as the mountain, unmoving as life teems around you. Breathe deeply as the mountain. Sit in the stillness of your mountainness. Let the resolve seep in. Stay in the stillness with dignity, steadfastness, and compassion for yourself and others in the continuous change that comes to all of our lives. And when you are ready, slowly open your eyes. a living, breathing mountain, solid in its form.
Okay, now we are going to have a reading from Andrew Cragg. Andrew is an avid hiker with a keen interest in the outdoors, and he's going to tell us something about trees. And all the quotes are from Peter Wohlleben, a former forester and author of The Hidden Life of Trees, What They Feel, How They Communicate, Discoveries from an Ancient World.
The
Andrew?
most astonishing thing about trees is how social they are. The trees in a forest care for each other, sometimes even going so far as to nourish the stump of a felled tree for centuries after it was cut down by feeding it sugars and other nutrients, and so keeping it alive. A tree's most important means of staying connected to other trees is a wood wide web of soil fungi that connects vegetation in a network that allows the sharing of an enormous amount of information and goods. The reason trees share food and communicate is that they need each other. It takes a forest to create a microclimate suitable for tree growth and sustenance. They also warn each other using chemical signals sent through the fungal networks around their root tips. Surprisingly, news bulletins are sent via their roots not only by means of chemical compounds, but also by means of electrical impulses. Once the latest news has been broadcast, all oaks, for instance, in the area promptly pump tannins through their veins. It appears that nutrient exchange and helping neighbors in times of need is the rule, and this leads to the conclusion that forests are superorganisms with interconnections much like ant colonies. We have learned that mother trees recognize and talk with their kin, shaping future generations. In addition, injured trees pass their legacies on to their neighbors, affecting gene regulation, defense chemistry, and resilience in the forest community. When you know that trees experience pain and have memories, and that your tree parents live together with their children, then you can no longer just chop them down and disrupt their lives with large machines.
Thank you, Andrew. And now we're going to hear from Chris Dunnigan.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Dunnigan, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees and your treasurer. Every Sunday that we gather, we ask for an offering to support the work of this congregation. Our mission statement here at the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood is to grow in mind and spirit, to act with love for justice, and to transform ourselves and the world. Our mission is no less the transformation of our own minds and hearts and of the entire world. As I know, you know, that takes work. It takes all those volunteer hours you put in. It takes passion and the sharing of your talents. It also takes money. We have been so grateful for the way you have all showed up during this strange time, with your hearts and minds ready to grow, with your talents helping us continue our work, and with your generous offerings. If there was ever a time for transformation in our nation, this is it. This moment will ask a lot of us, and we will stay committed to what we at USR have always sought, a world of justice, freedom, and equality, a transformed world. We also know that at this moment there are among us those who are unable to financially support the congregation and instead find themselves in need of support. If that is you, please let us help. Reach out to Reverend Sarah or the caring teams. For those of you who can give, please keep doing so with the mission of this place in mind. Your gifts are truly appreciated. Now, hopefully on your screen, although we're having some technical difficulties, you will see some different ways to make an offering. If you are a member or friend with us on Realm, you can give there. Otherwise, you can visit our website and use our Donate Now button. Or, if you're like me, you can mail a check to the office. In all cases, you can indicate that it is for the offering. And we have now added text to give. This couldn't be easier. Just text UU Ridgewood Plate along with the dollar amount you would like to give to 73256. The offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Yep.
Thank you, Ron. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce our speaker, Derick Lugo, author of the Unlikely Thru-Hiker, an Appalachian Trail Journey. I heard Derick speak at a book talk earlier this summer, and what stood out was Derick's absolute joy in hiking the over 2,000 miles of the arduous Appalachian Trail from Georgia to Maine. Born and bred in New York City, never hiking before, Derick traded city pavement for roots and rocks, and since it's his story to tell, I will pass it over to Derick now. Derick?
Hey guys, thank you for having me. First of all, I want to say, Marilyn, those words were really good. You hit a lot of the points that I had about a lot of Black people not being on a trail, and we'll go into detail about that later. Lois, that meditation was awesome. I actually today finished a 365-day consecutive days of meditation. So I did a whole year every day of meditation. So like that was going, now I'm going for like 2 years. So, and Andrew, the trees, you're right about that. When I thru hiked the Appalachian Trail, and if you guys don't know about thru hiking, it's when you do the entire Appalachian Trail from Georgia to Maine, which is 14 states, about 2,200 miles. And when I would start my hike, I would actually, there's white blazes on trees, markings that are actually show you the way through the Appalachian Trail. So I would actually touch like one of the trees, one of the markings, and just thank them for, you know, allowing the blaze to be on them. And when I finished, when I would like camp or pack up my stuff, I would thank the ground and the trees. So the energy was there. So definitely trees have a life that we need to like step back and understand. And that's one of the reasons why I go out there, just to be part of that energy, part of that life. So normally when I start my talks, I like to see like what kind of audience I'm talking to. I want to get to know them. And since we're doing a virtual thing, normally I have people stand up. Since we're doing a virtual thing, I would like you guys, if you guys have heard of the Appalachian Trail, just raise your hand and I'll see like, okay, so you guys know okay, great. All right, have you guys, all right, what if you hiked, let's say 10 miles of the Appalachian Trail? Raise your hand. Okay, all right, cool, all right. Now I know who I'm talking to. All right, great. So you guys actually, for those of you who didn't like either have never heard of the Appalachian Trail or have never hiked it, that's fine. Because when I first started hiking, I had never, now let me share this screen. I never hiked or pitched a tent, never camped out or anything like that. Let me share my screen with you guys. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So, see, I'm from New York City, and this was my wilderness. These were my, and this is how I got around. And this was the wildlife in New York. Didn't know anything about camping, and you're probably asking, so how did you find yourself on the Appalachian Trail for 6 months? Well, I'm a big reader, and I have a friend that just handed me a book, and she said, read this. She didn't tell me anything about it being about the Appalachian Trail. All I knew is that it was funny. I read it, it was hilarious, but the one thing that stuck out was this amazing trail that not many people would complete. And it stuck in the back of my mind that I wanted to do it. It was almost like a pipe dream where, you know, I want to travel around the world or, you know, run a marathon or whatever. Just something there, but I wasn't sure I was going to do it. And then once I decided I was going to do it, I started telling my family and my friends, and this, let's see, change this. Okay, here we go. before that. So I knew nothing about the Appalachian Trail. All I knew was that it went from Georgia to Maine. Again, I had never camped out, never pitched a tent. I didn't even know if I liked hiking. So, but I knew it was a challenge and it was something I wanted to do. So that was when I went out and started telling everyone that I wanted to hike the Appalachian Trail. And this was the reaction that I was getting from my friends. Now, I wrote the Unlikely Thru-Hiker, an Appalachian Trail Journey. And in this, I tell the story of, this is Nina, my friend, and her reaction of me hiking, or telling her that I was going to hike the Appalachian Trail. So I just tell her, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna hike the Appalachian Trail. She goes, okay. Why would you want to do that? She says, frowning. What? Because I can, because I've never done anything like this before, I say. She messing with me? It's an adventure, something I've wanted to do for a while. You've never mentioned that to me before, she shoots back, as if catching me in a lie. I'm sure I did. Look, that's not the point. Hike. What are you going to eat? Will you have cell service so you can order food? Do they deliver out there? She barrages me with questions, ignoring my efforts to explain. I will bring a cell for when I'm in town resupplying and if there's an emergency. I'll be on top of mountains, which I think will be out of delivery and maybe cell service. I say truthfully, not knowing the answer. I don't know about this. How long will it take you? She asked, unable to grasp the thought of me doing something so out of character. I'm going to try to do it in 5 months, I say proudly. You're going to live in the mountains for 5 months, she repeats, squinting her eyes at me as if I were too far away for her to see. Before I can answer, she continues, listen, pretty boy, I know you. You're the most well-groomed metrosexual black man in New York City. You, in the woods, without your mirror, your beauty products, or your designer clothes? Please. How are you going to shower? Wait, I don't have beauty products. Okay, maybe lotions. What about the manicures? Okay, I get manicures once in a while. What about, okay, I get it. I say, wanting to finally get my point across before she convinces me that I'm too meticulous about my appearance to live out in the woods. That was just one friend. So my friends thought I was too cityfied. My family thought I was crazed. And my brother, well, he was like, dude, you can just get like a machete and you can just strap it to your chest and you can go. And I was like, look, dude, there's a big difference between a thru-hiker in the woods and a dude with a machete in the woods. Okay, that ain't happening. Worse than this is a black dude with a machete in the woods. Like that ain't happening. And my mom, she's Latina, so she would yell at me like she was like, local. And she's like yelling at me as she's handing me like big plate of like rice and beans. And I'm like, okay, Mom, I got to do this. So it was hard to convince people, my family and my friends, and me being like black and from the city and no one in my family knowing anything about this, to convince them that I was doing something like this. But once I convinced them that I was going to, once they accepted that I was going or warned me not to go, I still decided to go. So within a week and a half of deciding that I was going to hike the Appalachian Trail, I went to an outfitter. I ran into like an Eastern mountain, and the first person I saw, I was like, hey, I'm gonna thru-hike the Appalachian Trail. And she turns around, she's like, great, I don't work here. So I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I go to someone that actually works, like, hey, I'm gonna thru-hike the Appalachian Trail. I need you to help me find some gear. He's like, all right, cool. What kind of gear do you normally like to, like, what kind of backpack do you normally like to wear? And I go, I don't know, I've never hiked before. And he goes, wait a minute, you've never hiked before and you're going to do a 2,200-mile hike. I said, yeah, why not? Everyone does it, right? He's like, okay. So he gets all the gear, I buy the gear, I bounce. As I turn around and I look at him, I see him, he's just like, I can almost read his mind. He's like, this dude is gonna hurt himself. But I went. I decided just to go. Whatever people thought, I was still gonna go. So I started my hike here at the Approach Trail. Now, the Approach Trail is not the official Appalachian Trail. It's eight miles of blue blaze where it takes you up these steps through a beautiful waterfall. And this is in Georgia. And I was like, man, I can do this. This is great, man. I'm in shape. I can do steps, you know. Once I started, I thought I was going to pass out. But once I got here to this point, which is the archway of the beginning of it, I was shocked. Like my system I stopped, and I had like a pain in the pit of my stomach, and I was thinking, why am I doing this? I have a backpack full of gear that I don't even know how to use, and I'm attempting to do this hike. As quickly as that thought came, it went away. I was out there already. I had nowhere to go. I had about 5 to 6 months where I was pretty much homeless. So why not just start hiking the trail? And once I started, it was obvious that I didn't know what I was doing. Now, this isn't my actual tent, but this is pretty much what my tent looked like when I got to Springer Mountain. So once you get there, everyone's pitching their tent. I, again, didn't know. I think I had put it together once in my bedroom. Still didn't know what to do. As I'm trying to get the stakes into my tent fly, I can't get it in. And this hiker comes by with a rock, and he taps all the stakes in. He looks at me and tosses the rock and walks away. And I'm like, you are a genius. So I grabbed the rock and put it in my bag and took it. No, I didn't do that. But that was one of the lessons. And in the book, there's the first chapter, one of the chapters is called Lessons at Springer Mountain. And that first day, I learned how to pitch my tent. I learned how to use my stove, my mini stove. I learned how to filter my water, and also hang a bear bag. Well, it wasn't hanging. You had like these wires that I had to figure out how to use. So that day was a day of lessons. And once that night, I didn't think I was going to be able to sleep. I ended up sleeping like a baby because those steps, I think it was 600 or 7, I can't remember right now, it's in the book. I think it's 650 steps, wore me out, and I was out. I ended up leaving camp the next morning, like 2 hours after everyone left. So I started hiking by myself. So this is what you're following. This is what I was saying earlier, where there's blazes on the tree, white blazes. And the rule is that if you're standing next to a white blaze, you should be able to see the next one, which wasn't the case. There was times where I was hiking and couldn't see any white blazes, which freaked me out. But today, I'm like, okay, cool, I got this. This is my first time hiking. I can follow this which kind of freaked me out. And then I would see different shaped blazes. Turns out this blue blaze takes you to side trails, like to shelters or to trailheads. And it took me a while to figure that out. There was a time where I couldn't find, in the book, there's a story of me not being able to find a water source. And I ended up hiking an extra, 20 minutes looking for a water source. And it turns out all I had to do was follow that blue blaze. But once I figured it out, I was on the trail. It was my first day hiking alone. Going up the steps, there was a few people on the trail. So I wasn't alone. I wasn't scared. But today was the first day by myself. And all the noises, everything, I heard everything. Little squirrels running across dried leaves scared me. It sounded like a stampede of boars. I was just every sound was freaking me out. There was shapes in the woods, logs and all that, little creatures. So I was a little nervous. It took me a while. Again, I'm from the city, first time in the woods. It took me a while to get used to these the sounds and the beautiful things of nature that I've never experienced. But then within a few days, I started hiking with other hikers. Now this group I named the Moving Village because we would pitch our tent every night and it looked like a village. And the next morning we just pack up and we go, and we were like the Moving Village. And within a week of hiking with them, everyone had a trail name except for me. And everyone decided that it was time for me to have a trail name. So they were like, okay, let's share a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And I would joke around about wanting, I'm what you would call a metrosexual, where I like Nina said, I like to groom myself more so before I thru hike. Now I'm a little more messy now. I used to never grow a beard, and now I grow a beard. I used to shave all the time. And I would tell Nina that I wanted to, every stream I went to, I would shave and bathe, do a bird bath and all that. And so I also joked around about wishing I had a full-length mirror that I can put in my backpack. And I just pull it out every day and just, while I'm through hiking. And one of the hikers, Overdrive, he joked around. He was like, hey, you're Mr. Fabulous. And I was like, dude, I can't walk around, I can't hike and sharing that name with people. And he's like, no, dude, you're a Mr. Fabulous. And turns out Mr. Fabulous is a suave trumpet player from the Blues Brothers movie. And he was like, dude, you can do it. You want to stay clean, you want to stay suave. I'm like, no, man, I can't do it. And every time, the first few days I used it, every time someone asked me what my trail name was, I would kind of apologize. Like, look, I'm sorry, but they call me Mr. Fabulous, but I didn't name myself. And and the reaction I got wasn't the reaction I actually thought I would get. I thought people were going to say, you're Mr. Fabulous? I mean, why would you call yourself that? No, people would laugh, want to know the story behind Mr. Fabulous. And it ended up being something that other people could enjoy. So it wasn't just about me being Mr. Fabulous, but it was about the trail being fabulous and other people. And I'll go into the community, the hiking community, which surprised me. It took me a while to get used to it, but the one story I'm going to share with you guys that actually sealed the deal that I was going to keep the name Mr. Fabulous was, there was one day I was hiking with Overdrive. He ended up hiking ahead, and I found myself alone. And there was a group of elderly hikers, maybe a dozen of them, going south. I was going north, and I stepped aside, let them go by, and they would wish me luck, ask me questions about the trail. And the last person, she must have been like in her hundreds. She was older than the Appalachian Trail. She was old. She had like a cane, and she had an aide with her. And she came up to me, and she was short, and she looked up, and she said, first thing came out of her mouth, she was like, what's your trail name? And I said, ma'am, I was a little comfortable with the name, but I still wanted to be respectful. Ma'am, your name is Mr. Fabulous. Without missing a beat, she goes, oh my God, I've been waiting for a Mr. Fabulous my entire life. And she grabs my face, gives me a kiss on the cheek, and just storms off with like a little pep in her. She didn't even need her cane. She was just like, and her aide is like chasing after her. And after that day, I said, you know what? That's it. I'm gonna use that name. And again, it's not about me. It's about my adventure, my story, the Appalachian Trail. And it's funny because if someone uses it that doesn't thru hike or is not a hiker or haven't read the book, I feel weird about it. But if I meet a hiker and they say, hey, Mr. Fabulous, and I say, I have a thru hiker friend named Overdrive, I'll just say Overdrive. That's the only way we know each other by. So it just became part of who I was, and I share, and also how other people interacted with me. I learned there's a couple lessons on the Appalachian Trail when I was thru hiking. And the one big lesson that stuck with me came from this guy, Birdman. And he was through hiking as well. And also I hiked in 2012. If I'm not sure if I told you guys what year I through hiked. And during that time, we had cell phones, but we didn't really use it for, now there's an app to through hike. During that time, we had a guide, paper guide. So one of the lessons that Birdman gave me was, he said that he ran into a through hiker that hiked the trail the year before. And he asked that through hiker, if you could change anything from your through hike, what would it be? And the hiker said, I took a lot of pictures of mountains, trees, grass, butterflies, dirt, everything else, but I didn't take a lot of pictures of people. And he said, I wish I would have taken more pictures of people. And that, as soon as he said that to me, that made a lot of sense, because yeah, you could take pictures of scenery and it's beautiful. It doesn't really capture it as if you were there in real life. But if you take a picture of a person, you can remember either their name, the conversation you had with them, the way they look, a feeling. Like when I see this, I remember, and look at that smile, I remember how jolly he was. He actually doesn't he look like a lawn gnome? Doesn't he look, they look like he just pick them up and put them on the lawn. But he was like the loveliest person I met. And it was weird because when he approached me, well, it wasn't weird, it was just different. When he approached me, I was with my through hiker buddy, hiking partner, Overdrive, and he was really, his attention was on me, and he just wanted to take a picture of me and us together. And that was part of it, of his story, saying that he wanted to take more pictures of people that he thought were interesting or whoever. So from that moment on, he was the first person I took a picture of after telling that story. He told that story. So I would take pictures of people that would give me trail magic. Now, trail magic is if when people leave food or water along the trail for hikers to help them along, or if they give them a ride into town, or let them stay in their house so they can shower, which I love. That's the best trail magic for me. If I can shower in your home, that was great, because I'm Mr. Fabulous, you know? And so he was the first person I took a picture of. I started taking a picture of many people, so that was one of the biggest lessons I learned on the Appalachian Trail. So there was a lot of reasons. Now, like I said before, my book is called The Unlikely Thru-Hiker, and there was a lot of reasons why I was the unlikely thru-hiker. One, from the city, I've never been in the woods, first time hiking, first time camping. And you would think the way I looked, I actually miss looking like this. There's two things that I couldn't go back to New York with. I couldn't go back telling people that my name was Mr. Fabulous. Like Nina wouldn't have it. My friends would not have it. And also I couldn't go back looking like this, because I look like I belong in like Times Square, like unless I'm juggling or something, you know, like I couldn't look like that. So that was one of the reasons, not knowing what I was doing, being from the city, first time hiking, but also, and I didn't know this when I first started, I didn't realize it was an issue. I was the only Black person on the Appalachian Trail. And people would come up to me, and they weren't being like, hey, you're Black, like, no, people were really happy and were open. They were embracing me, and they were just, it was a joy, and I could see it in their eyes. There's a story of a hiker. I was hiking up a mountain, and there was a hiker ahead of me, and it was raining really hard, and you could barely hear, but he yelled back, and he said, hey, are you Mr. Fabulous? And I go, yeah. And I think about it for a second. I'm like, how did you know? And he's like, because you're the only Black person on the trail. So, and it was a lot of facts like that things that people would say, they normally wouldn't say in a city, but when you're out on the trail, it's a different world, and people again were open, and they wanted to learn more about me, about why I was on the Appalachian Trail. And I'm checking on the time right now, how much time I have. Okay, I'm a little over. So I will end it by saying that I did finish the Appalachian Trail. That's me. Not spoiling the ending, but I did finish it. And also I want to end it with this one quote and I have to read it, but I love this quote. It goes, "If you want to sound wise, go to school. If you want to be wise, go to nature." Thank you for listening to me, guys. That's my story.
Unshare.
Here we go. Here we go. Yes. Okay.
Okay, thank you. That's great. I love your talk. And you covered some of the questions that I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
So thank you for that too. I appreciate it. One thing I wanted to ask you, and it's just a aside, but you're a vegetarian.
I'm a
How did
vegan
you
now.
manage on that?
I'm a vegan now.
You're a vegan.
And I was going to be a vegetarian before I started, but that was 8 years ago. And now veganism has changed, and it's gotten a lot better. Back then, they had some cheese that tastes like plastic, and I just couldn't do it. And there wasn't enough. I didn't think there was going to be enough food for me as a thru hiker. I do plan to do another thru hike as a vegan, because now we have grown. We have a lot more things out there. I was a vegetarian, so I was a pescatarian. So I did eat fish. So I would do tuna, salmon. I had ramen noodles. Peanut butter was a big staple for us. The bars, and I was still doing dairy at the time. So it was easier for me to I would get my proteins through the fish. So yeah, but it wasn't hard. It wasn't hard at all for me.
Oh, okay. All right. Interesting. And why did you decide to write a book? And how did you remember everything, or did you journal things, or how did that develop?
So like I said earlier, people were just telling me, coming up to me and saying that it was great that I was on the trail, that they love seeing me out here, and I still didn't get it. And I was like, cool, I love that you're on a trail, and I love seeing you out here, not really getting what they were saying. Mm-hmm. But then eventually it came out. I realized what they were saying, and then I was like, it was sad for me, because I didn't want that to be the truth. And I would start looking for a person of color, and I didn't see any. I think I saw maybe 2 or 3, and they were, doing section hikes. Like my first Black person, he was doing a day hike, and it was his first hike. I was like, oh, okay, welcome, So halfway through it, I decided I had a story, and I love the Appalachian Trail. I love hiking. I went from not knowing about the AT, not even knowing if I loved hiking, to loving hiking, and I couldn't stop talking about it. And I decided halfway through it that I was going to write a book, and it was going to get published. I didn't know how it was going to happen, and I wasn't going to worry about that. I was going to focus on writing it. I've written before, but not anything that I thought I wanted to get published. This I knew I definitely wanted to get published, because there was a need for it. My first draft was from memory, because I had just gotten off the trail. And here's a great story. The Appalachian Trail is so magical. When I was hiking, knowing that I wanted to write about it, I was hiking, and I said, oh man, I don't want to go straight back to New York City, because there's too many distractions, and I'm not going to be able to start writing my book. So I would love to go somewhere like a cabin to start writing for like 3 months, because that's where bestsellers go to write a book. They go to a cabin, or where teenagers go to get murdered, whatever. That cabins are for one of those two. And so the next day, or a few days later, one of my hiking buddies, his family picks him up. His parents pick him up. We go to pick us up. We go to get something to eat, and they go, hey, we have a cabin in Pennsylvania, and you can stay there and start writing if you want for 3 months. And I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. So I started writing my book, and I finished the trail in September, started writing my book in October, right off my memory, because I just gotten off the trail. So I was reliving the trail for, actually it was, it's about 1.5 years. But the first 3 months, and I finished the first draft, within about less than a year, maybe like, I would say like 8 months. And then I went back, looked in my journal, because I did have a journal. I've had a journal since I was a teenager, but most hikers have a journal just to write down their experience. And then I went back and got other stories and more details of, so then I was able to add it to the book.
Mm-hmm. Great story. Okay, I think we covered a few things. Let's see. Oh, is there any other reason that you think that people of color are not hiking, or do you think it has changed since you've hiked the trail?
It hasn't changed much. I think the percentage is 1% of the people that hike or through hike are people of color. It hasn't. I see more people now. Yes. And the reasons that you actually brought up are the three main reasons why I think, or I know, is knowledge. I didn't know anything about this. My parents didn't know. They didn't do this. My friends didn't do this. So why would I know? There wasn't a book out there like this that had a cover that looked like me. If I was a kid, I see this, I'm like, oh, okay. So our parents weren't teaching us. I didn't learn this in school. I didn't know any kind of material that had that would teach me about hiking. Two, financially, like, we just didn't have the money. We couldn't afford it. We didn't have gear. Gear is expensive. I spent over $1,000 in my gear because I didn't have any. We didn't have any that went from handed down from family to family, or from father to son, or family to daughter. So, and also the third reason is lore. I mean, what do we think about the woods? In history, the Underground Railroad. When we go to the woods, what are we going to the woods for? To escape. Bad things happen to us in the South. My brother would joke. I don't know if he was joking. I think he was serious. We would talk about, the rednecks in the South. I was like, dude, stop. So he was afraid, and I was not as afraid. I was more adventurous, but I was still like, hey, there's something out there. So yeah, there's those three facts that I think now we're getting better with getting the word out, and that's the reason why I wrote a book. That's the reason why I do talks. I was doing talks before my book even got published because I loved it so much. And now I moved to New York City, to a hiking town, and I'm going to continue. I want to continue sharing this because I do want not just Black people, but like little kids that never heard about it. Like, I just want to get the word out, and I'm amazed how there's a trail. I lived in New York City at the time, and there's a trail not far from where I lived, right over the George Washington Bridge, that can take me straight to the Appalachian Trail. So, just knowing is a main factor. And also that the whole scariness of it, we need to stop doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know you've talked about takeaways from the trail and what you learned on the trail. What do you think the main or the greatest takeaway you might have? Okay,
I'm a people person. I love people, but I'm still a New Yorker. So it's still like, if you're talking to me out of nowhere, I'm going to start looking for my wallet because I'm like, what? And there's a chapter in the book that talks about, that has a few stories of why I had like a suspicious mind going into the trail, because people were giving me stuff like trail magic. And I was like, why are people doing this? So I think the main thing I got out of the trail was the word love comes out of my mouth easily now, more easily. I trust people more. My thoughts of other people has changed. It's just a different world. The way just about everyone, I was in the woods for 6 months. Just about everyone I met was lovely. And that just changed my thinking. So I think now, like with my friends, if I hang out, whenever you gotta get out of this craziness. But before that, when we hang out and when we went our separate ways, I would say, I love you. We would say, I love you. And people got that from me, and they would freely say, I love you. So I think being more open with people and trusting more people was the main thing I got out of it. And this hiking community is amazing. I didn't expect this. I have family from all over the world, and this community is like the tightest community I've ever met. So yeah, that's the main thing I got out of it. And also a published book.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I read the book. I just finished it this weekend, actually, past weekend.
What you think?
I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. It made me smile. So they're very good. I recommend it to everyone.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. It was great. It was
Thank
great.
you.
Thanks. Okay. Oops. Okay. Oops. Okay. So we're up to the extinguishing the chalice.
Please join us in the words for extinguishing the chalice. They can be found on your screen. We extinguish the flame, but may the light of truth, the warmth of love, and the energy of action burn bright in our hearts until we are together again.
Okay, and now our closing words are going to be from Mary Oliver. Her poem called "When I Am Among the Trees." When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech and the oaks and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they save me, and daily. I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me, the trees stir in their leaves and call out, "Stay a while." The light flows from their branches, and they call again. "It's simple," they say. And you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine.